Hey, welcome back to another live episode of the Relevant Recruiter Show. Today I've got a special guest with me, my friend and client, Ann Bedford. We are going to dive into Ann's journey of running multiple firms, ProSource Staffing, as well as her launch of her executive search firm, NextGen. So we're going to dig into Ann's journey as becoming a recruiter, an entrepreneur, a business owner, and then we're going to talk about some of the success that she's had using some of the things that we teach in the Relevant Recruiter program and implementing the Relevant Recruiter method. So if you are with us live, let me know that you can hear us. Give us some likes so that more people can hear Ann's story. And thank you so much for being here with me today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm super excited about this.
Awesome. So, Ann, let's just dig into this right away. I mean, give us a little background. Like, how did you get into the recruiting industry?
Okay, so I have a little bit of a different and unique story. I was a hairdresser before I started, and I was getting tired of working the weekends. I was getting tired of working nights and being away from my husband. And at that time, I had a young daughter. And so I decided I needed to make a change. And the only way I was going to make a change was to get out and pound the pavement. Now, this was back in 1997 when there wasn't quite the internet that there is now, and there wasn't the social media, and there weren't the websites with the job postings. So I literally went from company to company, the way we did it back in the old days, looking for a job, someone that would hire me, even if it was just as a receptionist. At that point, I didn't care. I just wanted an 8 to 5 job.
Right.
So I walked into a staffing company, and a small staffing company in my town. I lived just outside of Houston, and she hired me on the spot. And I started, I think, that following Monday, but I only worked for her for 3 weeks, and I went to work one day and she had a note on the door that company closed. So that was quite the shocker for me. I did not expect that. And so I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do now? I don't want to go back to being a hairdresser. I don't want to go back to working the nights and the weekends. And so my husband said, why don't you take what little bit of knowledge that you gained in that short period of time and try it yourself? And I figured, well, I have nothing to lose. We were already broke. We didn't have any money. So it wasn't like I was going to be missing out on anything trying it. And I did.
Right.
And it was quite successful. And it went from there. I was picking up the phone. I was in the phone book, again, old school, but that's what we did back in 1997. And
Right.
I grew the company to a multi-million-dollar a year company within the first 2 years. And I did it by myself. I didn't have employees working for me at that time. So that is how I got started in the industry.
Love it. And that was with the Pro Staffing company, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. So that's interesting. I never heard the story about how you went and worked for 3 weeks and then you're kind of thrown into the fire of starting your own business. With that business specifically, like what was your biggest, challenge going out on your own?
Okay. So, well, I faced a lot of challenges. Like I said, I only had 3 weeks of experience, so I had no idea what it consisted of. I didn't think about, if I would have thought about what I was doing ahead of time, I probably would not be sitting here today, because I didn't think about, I have to pay people. Where am I going to get the money to pay them? I didn't know. I was so young and dumb at that time. I was 23 years old, knew nothing about business, that you also have to pay payroll taxes. You need to be covered under insurance. I didn't think about all these things. So the biggest challenge starting out was not getting the business. I was pretty successful when it came to business development.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest challenge for me was, how am I going to make payroll?
Right. Got it.
That was quite the challenge.
Right. Yeah. Didn't have a several $100,000 sitting in the bank to be able to float the payroll.
I had $200 sitting in the bank. That's what I started with. And every week was a game of beating the payroll check to the bank.
That is so fun. It's got to be so fun and rewarding to look back at that part of like just grit, grind, whatever it takes to get it going. And then boom, you finally hit that
Yes.
where, oh, I can breathe a little bit. I can pay payroll. I can, yeah,
Yeah.
that's gotta
And
be fun to really look back at.
it is. I look back and there's so many times I think, how did we even survive this? How did we make it through this? Because there were at times, payroll checks that didn't clear like they should have. But
Yeah,
I just kept feeling that I needed to keep pressing forward. I needed to keep moving forward, and I needed to continue to do the business development and do the recruiting and find the people to go to work. I should have, I felt like I needed to back out of doing it, but
right.
I didn't. I just kept pressing forward.
Yeah. What do you think? I mean, because I think that's pretty unique thing, and that you may not even give yourself credit for is a lot of people might have thrown in the towel at that point in time,
Yeah.
and I don't know if back there, but was there certain mindset things? Was there certain things you were doing to kind of just keep the faith because you're kind of flying alone for yourself for a while and, began check to check? Like, what were you doing to kind of help yourself keep plunging forward? It's one thing to say it, but then to do it is a whole different thing.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think what ultimately led me to keep pressing forward was praying. That I just felt it in my gut that there was some reason why I needed to keep going, because every day I woke up, I thought about this. Is this really worth it? Should I continue doing this? Should I just close down and then go to work for somebody else? Again, at that time, that was probably by that time, 1999, where I was really feeling the stress of the business. I was bringing it home. My husband had finally told me, you're bringing this stress home and you're taking it out on us. By that time, I'd already had another baby, and
Right.
he was not real happy with me. So it really kind of made me stop and think, okay, I've got to figure out something. I've got to figure out how I'm going to make this work. And I just started doing a lot of research and ways to take the business to the next level. Like, how am I going to overcome this financial burden, which is what it was. I wasn't able to pay myself. Um, but it just
Yeah.
became such a big financial burden to begin with. And through a lot of research, I found ways to um, have the funding that I needed, which really kind of accelerated my business and started taking it to the next level. I wish it was something I knew about when I had started, but I didn't. It took probably 3 or 4 years before I really figured out how to get funding for my business so that I could continue to keep it. I didn't want to give
Right.
up. I wanted to continue to do what I was doing, and I was determined, and I was going to find any way and every way I could to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really inspiring. And if you guys are listening in, hope you guys are enjoying this, because Ann's showing the ugly of it all. We always hear the good and we're going to talk about some of her successes and things like that. But Ann, I really appreciate being vulnerable and just sharing on how it impacted your family, your marriage, and cash flow, all of it. It's real, because I think that's what a lot of us go through in our own different ways. So I want to fast forward now a little bit.
Absolutely.
You just started NextGen recruiting last year, which is more of the executive search piece. But tell us, I mean, what inspired that? Why did you decide, okay, I've got one successful staffing business, now I'm going to go executive search route? Like, what inspired that for you?
Well, I've always wanted to do the search route. I did not know how to go about doing it. My ProSource staffing focuses more on blue collar workers like
Right.
welders, maintenance, mechanics, chemical operators, those types of roles. And so I was really burnt out. I actually stepped out of that business for a couple of years. I kept it and I came in every day, but I did something different. I actually got into real estate at that point because I was so burnt out on the staffing industry, and I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do with my life now? I'm burnt out on this. People don't show up to work. People get injured. There's always a problem. Companies don't pay, just issue after issue. And so I stepped out of it for a couple of years. And then I decided to reach out to someone that I knew in the industry that had been in search for as long as I've been in business, and
Mm-hmm.
ask him, how can I do this? Because I really didn't think that I was capable of doing search. I thought it was above what I was capable of doing. But through some encouragement, I decided, and some bravery, I decided, I'm going to jump in. Just like I did my first business, I'm just going to jump in feet first and see what happens. And so we opened up in January of 2022. Things did not go well the first year. I had pretty good success bringing in with business development. Business development is my strong point. It's always been my strong point. Again, did that kind of old school way. Pick up the phone, making phone calls, sending emails, doing my research on the internet, find out who's hiring. So 2022, it was not my best year ever. And to be honest with you, I was bringing in business, but I had recruiters that were not able to recruit. Within an 10-month period, I had gone through 8 recruiters. And so in 2022, after I went through that last one and no business whatsoever, we did not place not one role in 2022. I decided at that point, maybe I need to step back and again, reevaluate what I want to do. Is this a smart move for me? And so in March, I believe it was March of this year was when I decided, you know what, I'm going to give it another go and see what happens.
Yep. Right.
And that's when I met Donnie.
Gosh, perfect transition there. I think it's cool, and I think it's pretty unique for you guys that are listening of kind of Ann's model, which I think is a viable one that she's sharing, which is she's kind of rainmaking, right? She's bringing in the clients and then has a recruiting team. But I want to before we get into talking about the program, this is something that always comes up, and I'm just curious to hear what other people experience, because recruiters are great at finding talent. For other things I've found with working with recruiters over the years is their biggest challenge is usually hiring and finding good recruiters for their own team.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that? And do you have any tips on, obviously you burned through 8 to find the one that started to convert for you, but why do you think that's a kind of a challenge?
I think because we focus so much on our clients that we don't necessarily always put the focus in on our own team. I mean, it's kind of the example I used when I was a hairdresser. I was a great hairdresser, but my hair always looked like crap. Why? Because I didn't have time to do my own hair. So kind of the same philosophy is especially when you're solo, and I'm solo. So in NextGen, I have hired someone else since, not a recruiter, another business development person, but it was a matter of finding talent. And when there's great talent out there, but the majority of the talent is working. And so it takes a lot of time to go after, again, those passive candidates, just like we're doing with our clients. The clients were more important to me, filling those jobs was more important to me than filling my own. And so I think that's the challenge in recruiting firms and finding people to handle the recruiting portion of it is really taking the time to look for the talent that you need for your team too.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, it's definitely a common challenge that I hear, and it's, happy to hear that you kind of got figured out. Sounds like you got a good person on the team now to support, with what the business that you're bringing in. Because obviously you don't want to be good at bringing in business and then bad on the delivery side. That doesn't do anybody any good there. There's no money to be made.
It doesn't. No, exactly.
So, one of the questions came in from one of our people that are listening with us live right now were those contract recruiters or fully commission based?
Both. I tried both. And I also tried experienced recruiters, and I tried entry-level recruiters that maybe had a year under their belt. I tried hiring fresh college graduates. That didn't work. There just was not, and we provide great training. We're part of a network that provides great training. So it wasn't for lack of training. I took that burden off of my plate to a certain extent, and we had great training, but it takes a lot to be a recruiter. It takes a lot to be a salesperson, because when you're recruiting, you're essentially a salesperson just from the candidate side of it, though. So you've got to be able to sell those roles. You have to be able to accept no. I mean, we all know this, and it's it's no different than being a salesperson, me trying to go out and get business. A recruiter, a good recruiter, is going out and trying to get these candidates that have great jobs to go to work. And so you've got to have a great story to tell about the client. You have to have a great story to tell about the role and what is going to make them leave. And I think that was the biggest challenge.
Right. Right. If you guys are listening live right now, if you're enjoying Ann's story and vulnerability, go ahead and tap whatever reaction makes most sense for you. And feel free to kind of ask some questions along the way, and we can get some stuff. I know the hiring, or excuse me, the contract versus the in-house recruiters, but and into some of our work together. I mean, first, how did you even find out about me? Like, how did you discover me and my program?
So LinkedIn,
Okay.
it was just coincidence. I don't know, I'm not sure exactly, but I remember, I'm not sure how it came across my feed, but I remember seeing you come across my feed, and I started watching your videos. And actually this is the interesting part, and this is what so many people on LinkedIn need to realize. And it's something that you teach in your program, is that I watched you for a very long time before I reached out to you and said, can you help me? I did not, I kind of secretly sat back and I watched your videos. I watched read your post. I mean, I did it all, but I didn't react because, what typically people are like, okay, I'm not going to react because I don't want somebody reaching out to me. But, I got to the point to where I was like, okay, this guy here, he knows what he's talking about. And it was also a little bit for me, I've been in the business 20 at that time, 25 years, 25 years. And I'm like, okay, I've been in the business 25 years. It was almost as if I felt like after 25 years, I can't figure this out and I'm going to have to reach out for help. I'm really big about education. I go to every conference I can go to, but when it came to the sales portion of it, I thought that's what I do. I'm good at sales, but there was a whole nother market that I was missing. And that is the market that is on LinkedIn. I, again, was old school, making phone calls, sending emails, but from watching your videos and seeing your content, it started really resonating with me that there's another way to do this. There's a better way to do this. And so that's when I had reached out to you and was like, please help me.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you did. I'm curious what made you, as you were kind of evaluating coaching programs, my program over some of the other available for you.
Because of the content that you provided, because of the information that you provided. And I actually had hired a social media coach before I really started following you. And that I invested a lot of money and I didn't get anything out of it. I did not gain one client from that coach. But so I thought to myself, let me just see what Donnie has to offer. Let me check out his program and his package and learn more about how he works so that I can make an informed decision to move forward or look somewhere else. And our first conversation, you provided so much valuable information to me that I knew, it was like an instant, I need to do this. This is something that I've not seen from anyone else that I've spoke to. It's a different process. It's a different method. And I was like, I'm just going to try it. What have I got to lose? I've already lost $20,000 on other coaches. So, what's a little more?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll dig into that a little bit more later. What would you say, there's this whole idea, okay, you vet somebody out, you're watching them online, you have a sales call, and then you get into the program and the experience is probably not always exactly what we imagine, right? So, what about the program kind of catered to your unique challenges and needs, specifically?
I think what really catered to my needs was The ability to be able to set up automation. And I
Right.
really didn't understand automation until I met you. I didn't know really much about automation. And so that really just opened up a whole new door for me, to be able to continue to do what I was still doing, because I still believe phone calls, you need to still make your phone calls. But this
Right.
allowed for the automation for me to make that initial connection so that I could later reach out to them on the phone or through email, or
Right.
even a LinkedIn message to do another introduction. And so the automation was really big for me.
Awesome. I love to hear that. What about, I know that you're kind of starting on your content journey. I know we're ramping the content journey up, right now, but dig into that a little bit. What was your experience with, creating content before the program and kind of where you're at now?
I was terrified of creating content. I was terrified of video. I don't have a face for video. I don't have the voice for video. So it was terrifying to me to think, okay, I need to get on video, and how am I going to overcome this?
Yeah.
Doesn't someone want to see a 25-year-old more than they want to see me? But then that's when I realized, when I was told, no, people want your knowledge and your experience. That's what they want to hear. And so the more I started thinking about that, the more I realized I've got 25 years of knowledge and
Yeah.
experience that I can share with other people. And it kind of released that tension and that fear a little bit more when I started realizing, I do have a lot to offer. They
Right.
want the knowledge. They're not just worried about what that person looks like on the other end of the camera. They want to hear that you know what you're talking about. And so
Right.
that was a lot for me to overcome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got a little pushback from the audience. They said she has a face for video. What is she talking about?
Thank you.
So I want to dig into that because I think this is so relevant, and it comes up all the time, which is the fear, right? And I think the fear impacts us all in different levels, right? I've gone through fear of putting myself out there, imposter syndrome, fear of rejection, and all of that. What do you feel like helped you kind of stay motivated and pushing forward to overcome these fears, right? How did the program support with that?
Well, what made me overcome the fear was knowing that there were people out there that is doing what I need to be doing, and I have a goal that I wanted to meet. And I knew that in order for me to reach that goal, I needed to stand out from the competition. I needed to stand out from people that aren't doing what I'm
Right.
doing. There's a lot of people that aren't doing content, that aren't doing video. And so it really made me realize that if I'm doing that and I'm providing value, they're going to start seeing that. And that in itself is going to open up new opportunities. But
Right.
just my goals that I had, I'm very goal oriented, and I am a learner. I love to learn. And so for me, it was understanding that what you were teaching me about content and video was what I needed to do. And so I just did it.
Right.
Did it.
Right. You kind of cast your vision on the bigger vision, so that when those limiting beliefs and fears would come in, you were kind of anchoring like, okay, I'm doing this for this bigger goal. Then that's what helped you out.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I love that. I love that. I think that's really powerful. I'd be curious if you guys want to go in the comments. Let me know if you've ever had any fear about writing content or doing video. If you can relate with Ann, that's something that I see a lot with working with people is this fear. So kudos to you, Ann, for putting yourself out there. And I know that we're taking even more significant efforts to take that to another level now. So I'm excited to see where that part goes for you specifically. And I think that's you brought it up earlier, and I want to just kind of talk about it in you brought it up at how we coach you of this, which is exactly the experience that you had with me, which is you're watching me for a while. And this is one of the things that people in the content Content doesn't give us the instant gratification. It doesn't give us the instant dopamine. It doesn't give us the instant result. But, you know, I always use that as an example is because, well, hey, Ann, I didn't know who you were until you finally got on the phone with me.
Mm-hmm.
And people are always looking for the validation through likes and comments and engagement. And I always share that, like, most of my clients usually don't like and engage with my stuff. And that's just a vanity metric. And, you know, part of the process is understanding that your clients are like you, right? That they're watching, they're waiting, and then their need arises and then they reach out. And sometimes there's not the validation to go along the way, you know, to, hey, show me that what I'm doing is actually working and making an impact, right? So I really appreciate how you shared that, you know, how you watched me. Have you noticed anything? Have you gotten any clients now that you've been more aggressive of, you know, hey, seeing you out there and giving you feedback with the content efforts that you're doing?
Yes, I get messages from people that I'm connected with. I get messages from people I'm not connected with that the content that I post, they're like, yeah, you're spot on with that. Or I didn't realize that there was a recruiter that actually knew what they were talking about in the food and beverage industry, because that's my space. I work exclusively in food and beverage. And so I get messages from people, and those people that are messaging me that like my content, I'm taking note of it, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to press them right off. Oh, hey, you like my content? Great. How about we set an appointment? But I do work it into my plan. But yes, they're noticing. They're noticing.
Yeah. I love it. And a lot of good people are kind of validating what you just went through. You know, I for sure have a fear of providing content that, you know, doesn't bring value to the readers. Not knowing how my content, even a thought that is just simply written in a post, you know, is challenging to make the decision to post. And yeah, I mean, you know, I think it was Seth and Scott. I think those were in Daryl. I mean, all valid, you know, valid things. And, you know, there's a lot of strategy we could talk through about that. But one of the things that I'll just say really quick on the feedback is you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You just need to be smarter than the people you're talking to.
Yep.
You know, and so, you know, the idea is like, hey, you may not be the expert of all experts. For example, Scott, I know that there's marketing people that are much more advanced than I am, right? And it becomes part of the game. But that's where it's like you still have a ton to offer and a ton of value to go out there. And there's so many people in this world that, you know, you put yourself out there and people are going to connect with you, and they are, right? And a lot of what I think the fear comes from this fear of rejection, of wanting to be liked. And if you can kind of shift that into, hey, I just want to be respected. And you already have these knowledge. So if you were to just kind of very basically think about it, and I met you at a networking group, and I just said, hey, you know, Daryl, man, I'm trying to hire some people for my business. I know you're a recruiter. You know, can you give me a couple of tips? You would right away be able to just fire off 3-4 things that you could help. Cool, go post that, right? What kind of value are you driving to your calls with your clients and candidates, right? Go regurgitate that value and turn that into a post. And that's an easy way to kind of start and rip the Band-Aid. But I really appreciate you guys interacting and sharing that. Let's talk a little bit about results here. So, you know, there's all these efforts, there's this content, there's this automation, you know, but what were the tangible results that you've seen? I think we're actually still technically working together, but, you know, what were some of the results you can speak to after going through the program?
So yeah, going through the program, that really, in all honesty, and I'm not just saying this because we're on video together, but it was really one of the best business decisions that I've ever made. I just wish I would have done it sooner. It took my business from $0 to 6 figures in a matter of 4 months. And that was, I mean, I reached my initial goal in 4 months, and I
Right.
still have the rest of the year to go. So I will probably double that. The value that you provided with just simple strategies that anyone can implement was worth everything that I put in it. And that's just, now I'll say, Donnie knows my story. I went through some, and still going through, some very difficult times with aging parents and aging mother-in-law. And so my time has been very, very limited on what I can put in to my business. And if I can do it in 4 months and go to 6 figures in 4 months, working on a quarter time basis, just think about what you can do if you're doing it on a full-time basis.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. So I'm really looking forward to seeing once everything kind of gets squared away a little bit, where it's going to go from here, because the it's unlimited. I mean, what set your goals and reach them and surpass them. It's just been one of the best business decisions that I've ever made.
No, I appreciate you saying that. I'm humbled that that it's had that kind of impact. And obviously, I know you're saying that, yeah, you haven't been able to go full throttle, but you're obviously doing the work. That's how the results, happen with the coaching program. So,
Absolutely.
Kudos to you, and I'm glad that we've met, had this relationship, and had this kind of success. One of the things for me selfishly, and is I love watching people transform, right?
Mhm.
The value, the revenue, like, of course we all want that, but like a lot of it for me is the personal growth. So I would be curious to, like, what new habits, or what thing maybe on the personal side has this or hasn't this program, kind of given to you?
Oh, it's given me confidence. It's given me a lot more confidence. That is
Yeah.
another key thing. Like I've always been a pretty passive person. Even though I've been in business development, I do good when I'm one-on-one with someone. But to be on video like we are now, and to be on video for LinkedIn has been great, but it has helped me in my personal life too, because now I can stand in a crowd of people and feel confident about speaking. Whereas before I never did. I've never been a confident person. But it has soared my confidence some in knowing that, yeah, I'm not as much of a dumb blonde as I thought I was. I do know a little bit about what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Any other dumb blondes listening? I'm just kidding. Oh, that's really good there. You give a kind of going into this, like, can you give a behind the scenes, of like because I don't know if people understand like how the coaching and support goes. So quickly, like, what does the behind the scenes look like when somebody comes to the program, and what the support coaching calls are like?
Oh, support coaching calls are golden. We have 2 calls a week. Donnie is always on there. He spends an hour answering any questions that you have about the program, or even anything beyond the program. It has been a game changer as well. I mean, any questions, concerns, problems that you run into, Donnie's there to answer them for you and guide you. And that has been so beneficial, because so many programs, they give you the tools, the videos, or whatever the case may be, but the support is always lacking. And so I've had more support from your program than I've had from any other program I've ever done. And that's including investing large amounts of money every month for a huge network, and you're reaching out asking for help and you can't get the help.
Yeah.
You've never not been available to answer a question. And it's always been very quick. If you have a question, and I've had to email you, you've always answered with video, explaining how to do things, and ways to try things. But the way that you approach it too I love the way you approach it, because you don't approach it as I know it all. You approach it all as, here's a suggestion that I give you. You can use that suggestion and grow your business. You don't have to. You can do it a different way. But the support has been phenomenal.
Awesome. Love to hear that, and I love to hear how you're articulating that, rather than me. So it's excellent. What would you say, to somebody that's listening right now that might be considering my program, or considering taking the next step in a phone call? Like, what advice would you give them?
Don't wait. Do it now. It will be the best investment that you've made. I can't really say that. For me, it was the best investment that I've ever made. And you will see a growth in your business. There's no question about it. You will see growth in your business if you follow the program. You can't take his program and then decide not to do it or change things up. You have to follow the program, and it will work.
Love it. I appreciate that. I want to kind of wrap up with one thing here, Ann, and I don't want it to be like a bash session, but you actually inspired me a couple weeks ago with my post about snake oil and recruiters and coaches, because of your stories with that. And I certainly know there's a lot of really good coaches out there, but you also kind of shared some nightmares, and I'm not looking, what I want you to do is, what would be your tips when you're evaluating, hiring a coach, and what are some things maybe you can look for to kind of avoid some of the snake oil that's out there? Because I know that there's not all programs are created equal, and I know mine's not the only one that's good. There's other really great trainers out in this space, and how do we bring more attention to the ones that are delivering real results?
Yeah, I personally think that the most important thing you need to do is find a coach that is working in your industry. If you're a recruiter, you need to find a coach that knows recruiting, whether it's a business coach, social media coach, whatever the case may be. Don't hire someone outside of the industry. And that's been some of the mistakes that I've made in the past, is hiring people that, they didn't have bad reputation, but it's
Right.
so much better if you have someone who knows the industry, because it's not a one size fits all. And before I went with your program, I actually secretly reached out to people who have been in your program and asked them, what kind of results did you get from this program? And that's very important too, is find people who have been in the program that you're considering and ask them, what did you get out of the program? How did it help you? How did it benefit you? And everyone that I reached out to spoke very highly and talked about the great results that they had. And a lot of them were six-figure results as well.
Love it. Love it. I appreciate you sharing your experience, because I know it's not easy picking, a coach. And I know you're somebody who's fully invested in development. You've hired me and some other really great coaches in this space. And I think that that's important. You share that experience like that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Excellent advice. And if you could, give somebody one tip, you get to be the expert here. What's one piece of advice you'd give anybody that's out there, running a recruiting agency right now?
There would probably be a couple of tips that I would give. One is pick a market. Don't specialize in everything. Pick something that you're familiar with and that and that you feel comfortable selling. For me, that's manager, director, and VP level. I don't do a lot of C level because I feel like it's a little more up there. So have your specific niche that you work in, and don't give up. Just keep going every day. If you are meant for this and you feel like you're meant for this, then stay motivated, stay positive, wake up every day and say, I'm going to go get this. I'm going to rock this day, and go after it.
I love it, Ann. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the value. If you guys are listening, go ahead and give Ann some love, give some likes, give some comments. Thank you for, taking time out of your day to share your journey, share your story. Very inspiring. I also appreciate you sharing about, what our work together. If you guys are listening and you want to explore, the Relevant Recruiter program and see if we can get you some results like Ann, there's really no risk to hopping on the phone with me. So drop a comment below. I'll send you my calendar link, or send me a direct message. We can talk about the exact, process that we put Ann through, and get you into taking action. But really appreciate everybody that listened today. Ann, thank you so much again for taking time out of your day. I really enjoyed this. This was awesome. I always get to learn some more on these about, my people too, in these shows. And so I always leave inspired. So again, thank you guys for watching with us today. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another live episode here on LinkedIn. But until then, we'll see you on the other side.
Bye.
Talk to you soon.